Hello again, Steve here with a few comments to weigh in on why is it that Trump is so successful in Asia, where characters like Obama were much more of a failure, you might say. We all remember, with details aside, because I don't have all the details, it doesn't really matter, Obama's last visit to China, when basically not many people showed up, and he was, the mainstream media, of course, didn't make it look like this was a complete embarrassment, but it really was. It should have been anyways, because head of state visiting another major head of state, supposedly, who basically doesn't show up, versus Trump when he visits there, it's, red carpet from wall to wall, and a massive event in China. And I think the reason is because I've been a bit of an observer of people throughout the years, and what I've noticed is that for the Chinese, it appears as though they adore money and they venerate the strength of male power. I mean, it's pretty well known that, for example, they favor males over females. Let's put it this way. And when there was the one-child policy for years and years, there was a massive number of abortions that took place of girls, right? So because parents would prefer, if they only have a choice to have one, they would prefer to have a male. And as a result now, there are, I don't know, maybe perhaps tens of thousands of males who in China who have basically no chance of having a wife, because there's way more males than there are females. And this is sort of a nature of it. But the other thing about the Chinese people is how they align with the Trump way of looking at the worldview. Basically, Trump worldview is that there is to be fiscal and, to a great degree, moral conservatism, right? But on the social side, it's more of a communist collectivism, and that's very much what the Chinese are. I've said it before in other videos that I've done here, that Trump, contrary to what the mainstream media wants to paint him as, is and has been a social democrat. That's his stance on a social level, right? Fiscally, he's more of he's a big government but free enterprise. Create as much free enterprise down at the bottom to get the engine going of the economy is what he's the money president, right? So, but from a social democrat side, he's a manager, and he's talked about this over and over again in interviews that it's about management. So he is a socialist fundamentally, like the Chinese are, but he's going to manage socialism better. And one of the reasons that China has done better under its current system than under its draconian communist totalitarian system that it had before is that they're managing their socialism better, right? They're allowing for some free enterprise to take place, and at the same time keeping a big, strong government overviewing everything, which is what Trump is, right? He's big on police and military and all these sort of big, huge government monstrosities that keep people in line, but yet at the same time create a set of rules that at least there seems to be fairness amongst everybody. Very similar to the Chinese system, I would say. And but the Chinese didn't respect Obama, though, because he didn't have that fiscal responsibility, which is what they see as important. They probably saw Obama as a negative for America, which means a negative for them, whereas Trump, being a fiscal guy who's going to manage better, the Chinese are very practical. They realize that if America's doing well, we have the opportunity to do well to do better than we are as well, because they buy so much of our stuff, right? And whereas Obama was driving the economy into the hole, which was going to affect China in a big way, so they didn't have a lot of respect for him. And furthermore, he wasn't a manly man, right? He was more of an egalitarian man, where everybody's equal, man, and men and women are the same, and all this sort of stuff. Where the Chinese don't believe that, right? The Chinese, they see men and women as very, very different, as most non-Western countries do. They're more realistic, right? They see things as they are. And whereas the sort of this great social experiment that took place in the West of egalitarianism, and it supposedly took place in China under communism, but it didn't really. because it didn't really in the minds of people, because we can see that with the one-child policy, right? Because who did they choose to abort? They chose to abort girls. Why? Because they know there's a difference. And somehow in their mind they preferred the male, because I think probably it has to do with they adore money, which men create more money, and they venerate male strength and power. And that's what they saw. If they only have a choice for one, they're going to have a male. And that's what they did. So they see Trump as this uber male, right? This larger than life male, who's also a good manager of socialism, which they see as very important in their culture. And also, though, a very much of a supporter of free enterprise and creating lots of money and wealth and so on, which is going to spin off and be good for them. So they see Trump as nothing but a positive for them, I would say. Very similar to them in a way, his thinking. Very practical, very pragmatic, very how can we make more money here kind of deal, right? And I think it's very clear that this is one of the reasons. I'm not sure what the lesson is here really, but it's probably a lesson in understanding why it is that people prefer one thing versus another. And this is, in more of a global world that's taking place. It's good that we understand the Chinese mentality, because they're so big in the world in terms of influence now. Now, another thing that I noticed was a couple nights ago, I was at an event, and there was this guy who was a conservative. He did a conservative political speech, and he did it as somebody who would potentially run in politics at somewhere down the road. And there was a few Chinese people in the room, and I was noticing how they related to it, because the guy was putting forth this concept of fiscal conservatism and this law and order, this very, sort of old-style Tory stuff in a way, but at the same time, social conservatism. Like, what's the deal with, certain things like marijuana and whatnot? More of a sort of a social communist concept, like for things that don't really have much concern or much potential damage to the economy. Let's let them go, and let's have, but also this strong let's work together idea. But at the same time, let's be fiscally responsible. Let's be socially responsible. Let's have heavy amounts of law and order. And I could see the Chinese in the room nodding their head. We agree with that kind of thing, because they want that. It's very similar to what they're having, and they see what has worked in terms of their image of success in China, which was slackening up on the fiscal and the fiscal side of things, letting people have more freedom on the fiscal side, but keeping that heavy clamp down of the sort of socialism on top of it all, this blend, right? It is interesting. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why the Chinese respect Trump much more than they did Obama, because he is, they adore money. Let's face it, if Chinese, they're hardworking people and they want to make money, right? I mean, it just completely blatant about it, and almost at any cost. I mean, it pollute the hell out of the environment and so on. Just let's make a buck, right? And they venerate the strength of male power. That's clearly demonstrated in the way they acted under the one-child policy over and over again, and they have a big respect for it. And Obama being kind of in the opposite camp of that, didn't have much respect for him, didn't roll out the red carpet at all, whereas they did for Donald Trump. So take what you may from these ideas, these thoughts, and we'll talk again soon. By the way, if you like what I'm doing, like, subscribe, and share. Talk again soon. Bye for now.